All right, good afternoon. This is the Lehigh County Authority. Hang on a minute, let me get rid of this thing on my screen here. This is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of February 26, 2024. Meeting is being recorded and is available via phone, Zoom, being present in the office, and also on the web. Let's have a roll call of the Board of Directors to see if we have a quorum.
All right, roll call of the board. Brian Noggle.
Here.
Amir Famili. Ted Lyons. Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker. Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Rennes.
Here.
All right, we have 6 board members present. That is a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. We did hold an executive session prior to this meeting on potential litigation. No actions were taken. Board packages were sent out in advance, either electronically or in hard copy, and are also available on our website. Let's review our agenda and any need for executive sessions. Before we get into that, there was a separate email that sent out saying that the agenda was changed. I guess that was also done online. And we should have the newest version in front of us with an additional item under Finance Administration, which we'll deal with later. Anyway, review of the agenda and executive sessions.
All right, so as you noted, Mr. Chairman, we did have an executive session prior to the start of this meeting related to potential litigation. No additional executive sessions planned or requested. On the agenda, we do have one item, the first item under Finance and Administration related to the legal action regarding PFAS litigation. That item we will remove and take no action or have no discussion today. And then no other changes to the agenda.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the February 12th, 2024 board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion made by Sean and seconded by Linda. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, ayes have it. Moving on, at this time, we open the floor to any public comments about any items that are not on the agenda. Are there any public comments?
I have no comment, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else? All right, moving on then. Under Finance Administration, the first item under that has been removed from the agenda. Next is the election of Board of Directors officers. Report out from the nomination committee of 1, Norma.
All right, then Brian Nago is chairman, Amir Famili vice chairman, Kevin Baker, Jeff Morgan, secretary, Ted Lyons, treasurer, Kevin Bacon, assistant treasurer, Norma Cusick, assistant secretary.
All right. Are there any other motions, nominations from the floor? Norma, have there been any other suggestions for other people or people that had wanted to be on an officer?
No one has called me and I have not received any other nominations.
All right, point of order, Kevin Reed. How do we proceed with full slate of officers without any opposition?
I believe Ms. Cusick could make a motion, and if there's a second, the board could act on that.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Norma and seconded by Linda.
Yep.
For acceptance of the nominations as presented by Norma. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Officers have been All right, moving on then to the first item under water. We have water main replacement program cycles 9 through 11. Seeking approval, it is the blue documents within the board package and digital board package pages 6 to 9.
Chuck?
Thank you, Lethal. Okay, you're gonna be hearing a lot from Jason today, starting with this project. This is for an authorization for 3 years of design work for 3 cycles of water main replacement in the city, per the lease. It's for 2 miles per year. And I'll let Jason take it away with the details.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you, board members. As referenced in the agenda, this is for the Allentown Division Water Main Replacement Program design phase and pipe prioritization assessment for cycles 9 through 11. Just give you a little bit of project overview. Through the operating standards of the lease agreement as amended in 2020, which requires LCA to replace aged, spun, or pit cast water mains annually. This project covers cycles 9 through 11, which will address the Allentown Division main replacement requirements through 2027. Project includes approval of approximately 6 miles of water main to be designed and bid through the term of the authorization. All water main replacements will be constructed from intersection to intersection, allowing future replacements to be easily constructed. At which point, any additional water main beyond the agreement will be credited to future project cycles. The project scope includes the annual pipe prioritization assessment program, which also includes a 5-year replacement plan as required under the agreement, the lease agreement with the city of Allentown. It is important to note that given the complex nature of the project, which entails replacing water mains in densely populated urban areas, coordinating with the city of Allentown, along with outside agencies and private utilities, it is critical to obtain the necessary approvals. As was the protocol with previous cycles 1 through 8, it is envisioned that all water main replacements for a given year will be covered by a single construction contract. Financials on this project, the project will be funded by the LCA, Allentown Division, and has been approved by the city of Allentown major capital improvements. Project status pending board approval of the design phase of cycles 9 through 11. That'll set us up for constructions as we go through the projects each year. This approval, the design phase cycles 9 through 11, in order to leverage continued efficiencies with engineering work, LCA recommends retaining the services again at Fleming to provide design and bid phase services, including the annual pipe prioritization assessment program, which will cover all the 9 through 11 cycles in the program. Give you a little background on Gannett. Gannett has served as our design engineer from day 1 in the Allentown Division project work, starting off with cycle 1 and going through cycle 8. They consistently provided excellent deliverables and met all the goals for the lease agreement and all our goals here at LCA. Gannett Fleming and LCA have established an excellent partnership over the last 10 years, and the firm is familiar with the city departments and the process and protocols. So what we're seeking for authorization today is 2 motions, one for the capital project authorization in the amount of $775,000, which includes the Gannett Fleming professional service authorization of $525,000. Any questions?
So 2 quick questions.
Sure.
I'm gonna pull a Dick Bonner here.
Yeah.
I have number 1 on page 1, that should be 9 and, okay, just want to make sure I'm not confused. And then what size pipe are you looking at?
It's a mix of pipe diameters, anything from, we've replaced in years past, there were 2-inch water mains we found in the city, all the way up to our 12-inch water main typically.
And then, so now currently, so 9 to 11, what are you looking at, or you don't really know till you get in?
We don't know that until the pipe prioritization assessment report gets
Okay.
run out, and we get to look at where we're going to be replacing.
Great, all right, thank you.
Any other board questions? I have one. Jason, good presentation. On a project like this with the $775,000, you have listed $150,000 in contingencies, and I know there's an explanation. I think maybe you can get into that a little bit.
Sure. The contingencies are built in for some anomalies that we may find during our design process, like maybe a pressure reducing vault, something that's out of scope for just a standard main replacement project. That's why there's roughly that kind of money's set aside there, thinking about 150 divided over the 3 years. So if we have some out of scope items like that to design around that are not included in the general pipe design efforts, that's where the contingencies fall in place.
That large of a number is kind of unusual for a capital project, but that's the explanation is because it's all underground and never know what you're gonna find.
You never do.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the board? All right, then we have a request for a capital project authorization, design phase and pipe prioritization assessment program cycles 9 to 11 for a total amount of $775,000, and this is in the Allentown division. That includes the $775,000 includes a professional services authorization to Gannett Fleming for $525,000. You know, motion and a second.
So moved.
Linda, motion.
Second.
Mark, second. All right, motion made in second. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Moving on then to the next Jason proposal. Lead service line replacement project cycle 2, seeking approval. It is the yellow documents within our board package. Digital board package pages 10 to 15. Seeking approval.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'll introduce this project, and this one is Jason's again. This is the second lead service line replacement project under our program to replace all the lead service lines in the city. We're calling this cycle 2. The scope of this design will be for replacing up to 1,000 service lines. Okay, we have a current project now that is going to move to construction shortly and be completed this year for the replacement of 150 lead service lines. It's sort of a pilot program so we can see what all we will get into. But this next project, we're asking for, we're gonna be asking for $15 million in grant funding from Penvest. And this will be designed this year and constructed next year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thanks again, Chuck. Thank you again, board. Just to give you a little bit further background from where Chuck was coming from. In 2021, the U.S. EPA issued its final regulatory framework for the lead and copper rule revisions as we know today. And in late 2023, EPA also published the proposed lead and copper rule improvements. Based upon that, Lehigh County Authority then took a proactive approach and developed its in-depth lead service line replacement plan. Chuck mentioned about where we are with cycle 1 of the lead program. This one's obviously cycle 2 of the program. And like Chuck mentioned, we're going to try tackling 1,000 services in year 2. And part of that, we're also going to be seeking more Penvest funding and hopefully trying to pull off somewhere around $15 million in our application process to seek that kind of grant funding, just like we did in year 1, where we acquired about $5 million. So that's the project background, so to speak. Part of that obviously is the application process and then the design and bid phase processes in that. So the project scope is taken care of by 2 professional service authorizations, including that funding support and then the design bid and construction services. Funding application, this work will include preparing the PennVest application in compliance with the state requirements, including the disadvantaged business enterprise requirements. The design side is the project scope will include field investigation, potholing, and replacement of approximately 1,000 lead services, like I just mentioned, solely in the Allentown division. And that section will be has been selected in the same area in Allentown, where it's more of the low to moderate incomes to help us leverage and potentially leverage from getting the funding like we did in cycle 1 of the program. The lead service line for cycle 2 will be covered under a single construction contract, just like we do with other large scale linear asset projects. Financials for this project represents a change of law and will be funded by the Allentown via a combination of PennVest grants and loans. The loan portion of the funding will be captured via change of law fee applied to customers in Allentown. This approval for the lead line cycle 2, the funding application services, the LCA staff recommends retaining the services of Gannett Fleming to provide the PennVest funding application services. Gannett successfully completed numerous PennVest applications for similar projects and is familiar with the city system. And they also were very instrumental in getting us our PennVest funding for cycle 1. So again, I think it's best that we leverage them to go ahead for that funding portion. The design bid and construction management services. I'll let AJ speak to that and his process that he went through for consultant selection.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, just we used a two-step process for identifying the best firm for this. We requested qualifications from a number of firms: Lawson, Ramble, WRA, HDR, AECOM, CDM. On the basis of the responses we received, we requested proposals from AECOM and CDM Smith. CDM Smith was the only firm that submitted. AECOM did not submit a proposal. We're very happy with the CDM proposal. They have excellent qualifications. They've managed over 50,000 lead service replacements in the U.S. and were instrumental in the successful program where all lead services were replaced for Newark, New Jersey. They proposed on the basis that they were in a competitive environment, and so we received a competitive proposal from them. So yeah, we're recommending CDM Smith for this work. Back to you, Jason.
Thanks, AJ. Project schedule. Obviously, we're seeking the design bid phase portion of this at today's meeting here. And with that, if we get the approval today, we're going to be hopefully out on street bidding in fall 2024 with bids opening later that year. Construction end is anticipated to commence in early 2025. So with that being said, we're looking for 3 motions from you guys. Capital project authorization of $1,222,207, which includes a professional service authorization for the funding application side of this in the amount of $38,600 and another professional service authorization to CDM Smith for design bid for $933,607.
If I could just clarify something, Jason said construction phase. So it's construction phase, construction services from the consultant, but this isn't any contractor authorization.
That's
It's
correct.
just design bid and then the construction portion of what CDM Smith will provide. And the project location, if you couldn't read the map very well on the paperwork, it's generally north of Hamilton Boulevard from 4th Street west to 12th Street. That's the general area that you see on that map in your board paperwork.
What's the potholing technique?
So
Can you explain that?
yeah, to speak on the potholing technique is we need to field verify what the materials are, private and public. So the potholing will occur right around the curb box, and it's a soft dig, so a core, like thinking of a hole saw, like in your standard, construction work in your house. Pull the impervious coverage off the top, your asphalt, your concrete, and then go at it with a softening method, water and vacuum to go down and look at what the materials are there in the vicinity of the curb box.
Private and then on public side. Can you get some sort of a check on that, at least on the private side from looking at their meter, if you can get access? to the
Yeah,
house?
and we, with Chris, and his staff, we were able to get into a certain portion, at least in cycle one, get into a portion. Sometimes we won't be able to get in until the time we start looking at it during construction. It was an exhaustive effort. Chris, in cycle one, can you give some point in regards to how many homes you tried to get in and what was your success?
I think we hit 510 houses and we were able to get into just under 200. So we were pleasantly surprised with the amount of homes we were actually let in. We did field inspections with lead test swabs, scouring pads, and we built an app out so the guys could test verify in the field and submit to us. So
to your point, Jeff, there's that portion to assist, but then when we can't get that, that's where the potholing will come into call to decide to see if there truly is lead on that side or galvanized on the private side.
Right.
And then what the public is as well.
I was just gonna add the way we're planning to do the potholing is that we can see both the public side and the private side in the same pothole. So we basically have the curb box.
And if you're looking at the fee, it is rather high, but that fee includes a significant portion for survey. For 1,000 services, it's quite an extensive survey effort.
Yeah. So I think approximately close to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 miles.
26 miles.
26 miles of survey on all the blocks. Any other
Okay.
questions?
No board questions? I have one, just, has Allentown been, approached about the change of law funding provisions of this project? I'm sure you were. But just wondering if
Yes, they have been.
Everybody's in agreement?
Just one more comment, Brian. One more question. So I'm guessing, because with the grant request, you need to do this detailed investigation. Could you just make the assumption that they're all lead and skip all the investigation and just bid replacement? But I guess because of the grant, you need to make sure what each one is. I mean, if, you know what I mean, if you do one per block and just make the assumption that we're gonna just do all of them, I don't know, I'm just asking if I'm not that familiar with the water side of things, so I was just curious just how that all works, or if there's computer modeling or some way to statistically look at it and not have to physically dig stuff up before you replace it.
Yeah, I can take that one. So, yeah, so we have, we have our existing records, so we're using that information. And then we're field verifying where we can. That's all the good work that Chris and Field Services did. We also have, Blue Conduit is a AI firm that's gonna look at all our data and see if they can predict what we might have based on all that data. But yeah, I mean, the crux of your question is, yes, we want to be able to show that we have services that need to be replaced when we go in for the application, just to demonstrate that the work is there. And so we're basing the application on a certain, like I said, 1,000 services, and you want to be able to justify how you came up with that. One other aspect of the project that's super important is that once we get into construction, if we haven't been able to absolutely verify the materials, we will be potholing to make sure we get the lead out. So there's a lot of work done during design, and then there's more verification work done during construction. But back to your question about the Penvest, we want to be able to show them where we expect it to be and to justify the cost.
Okay.
And just to be clear, we're not doing the full investigation and potholing prior to the application.
Okay.
The application is just a few weeks away.
Right.
We'll be back in front of the board for authorization for that grant application probably next month. So it was kind of a two-step process, get as much done as you can to put the application together. And then pending the funding decision, then we really kind of get into gear with all the rest of it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Chris. Of the 200 houses that were gained admission to, how many of those did actually have lead piping?
Overall, 4. And there were 47 that were galvanized, which also fall under the lead and copper rule as well. So we had about 25%, 40%. I'm not good at math. We had a substantial number that actually will require removal, replacement.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have before us a capital project authorization request for lead service replacement program cycle 2. In the Allentown division, it's for bid, design, and consultant work prior to construction for a total of $1,222,207. That includes a professional service authorization for the funding application services to Gannett Fleming for $38,600 and a professional services authorization, design, bid, and consultant work for construction phase services to CDM Smith for $933,607. Need a motion and a second to accept that.
Make a motion.
Motion by Sean and a second by Linda.
Yep.
All right. All right. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you again, Jason and AJ. All right, next on the agenda is a wastewater item, it's sanitary sewer collection system. The INI source reduction program, LCA year 1, seeking approval. It's a green document within the board package and digital board package pages 16 to 18. And this is also in the Allentown division.
Thank you, Diesel. This one will be Jason's again. I'll introduce the project. This is the first cycle of a 10-year program that uses data collected by Arcadis, nighttime wearing work that was done in 2022, and modeling prioritization work to basically look at the various drainage basins in the system and prioritize them for annual source reduction project. So this is for construction of the cycle 1 project. Kleinfelder was the design engineer, and they'll continue to serve as the construction phase engineer. You won't see a separate authorization for them because we already did authorize them for design, bid, and construction. So with that, I'll turn this over to Jason.
Thanks, Chuck. Going on marathon here. We're on 3, so see if I can take this one home across the field, the line as well. So anyway, like Chuck had mentioned, this is for the Allentown Division INI source reduction program year 1 construction phase. Provide a little bit more background on the project and the program itself. As Chuck had made mention, based on the recommendations from the 2021 Kleins Island Sewer System Flow Characterization Study and the 2022 rainfall-driven INI analysis that Arcadis had put together, the City of Allentown developed its 10-year INI source reduction program, just as known as SRP. The goal of the work is the cost-effective reduction of INI to reduce both dry, day, and wet weather flows down at the Kleins Island wastewater plant and through its sewer system. Project overview. This authorization request is for the construction phase of the INI source reduction improvements for year 1 project. That encompassed the 3 highest priority sewer system collection basins in the city, and it will be addressed in this project as per the city's 10-year INI source reduction program. So we're following their program, and this is where it has led us to go. Financials under the terms of the lease agreement, as amended in 2020, LCA will provide funding for the SRP from its downtown division revenues and reserves. After the first $650,000 is spent each year, additional project costs beyond that amount will be recaptured through LCA sewer rates through capital or cost recovery charge. However, in 2023 here, the city was awarded an H2O grant through a collaborative grant application process conducted with LCA, with proceeds to be used for this program to reduce the future rate impact to city customers. So that's where our funding is coming from for this project. Project status in February of 23, the board approved the design and construction phase and engineering service, as Chuck made mention. So that's why you won't see a PSA here for Kleinfelter. Okay? The approval of construction phase, the downtown division SRP year one project will include rehabilitation of existing sewer main lines, including cleaning, inspecting, and cured in place pipelining of approximately 22,000 linear feet of sewer mains. Additionally, 150 sewer laterals will be grouted along with rehabilitation of approximately 1,200 lineal feet, vertical feet of existing manholes by lining. The project was advertised for bid in early December, and as of January 23rd, we received 4 bids, where Vortex Services was the lowest apparent bidder for the project work. Reference checks for Vortex Services have identified no issues. In fact, Vortex completed the city source reduction improvements program that was administered by LCA for years 3 and 4 when the city ran the program. They did satisfactory work in accordance with the contract schedule. So based on reference checks and previous experience working with Vortex, LCA recommends contract award to Vortex Services. Assuming board approval, today, notice to proceed will be issued early in March with an anticipated construction completion later this year. So we're seeking 2 motions. The first is obviously the capital project authorization of $2,717,297.50, which includes the general construction contract to Vortex Services for $2,492,297.50. Does anybody have any questions?
Just one question. How do you guys handle the inspection of this? As far as, there's traffic control, hanging notes on people's doors that their source service is gonna be interrupted. Making sure all the laterals get cut out for all the houses after it's lined.
That's important.
Yeah, that's important.
It is going to be a process. And we've run into those things with other project work like we've done like this. So there'll be proper notification for types of work like that. The inspectors for this project were already authorized during the design bid and construction phase services through Kleinfelter, and I do believe they're going to be using a local inspection firm, Barry Isett.
Oh, okay.
And
I just didn't know if you're doing it yourself internally or if someone else was doing it.
yeah, it'll be external.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any other board questions? All right, then we have before us the Allentown Division I&I Source Reduction Program Year 1. This is the construction phase for a capital project authorization total of $2,717,297.50. That includes a general construction contract with Vortex Services LLC for $2,492,297.50. Somehow in the future, we can get rid of the 50 cents somewhere.
Well done.
All right. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
That was Jeff making the motion.
Second.
Second by Norma. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. James, thank you, Jason.
Welcome, Brian, and thank you, board.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the monthly project updates, information items. Oh, I'm sorry, take that back. Moving on to the monthly financial review. the second board meeting of the month. It's digital board packages, pages 19 to 31. December 2023 report that was attached in our board package. They are white documents.
Just as a reminder, we're doing December 2023, so it's kind of the year-end look for 2023. The January report, we're just going to send to the board. And then in March, we'll be back on schedule with doing the February report. Is that right, Ed? That's the plan?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share screens so we can review Ed's financial report.
So we're going to talk about how we did in December. I lead in with a note right up front. These are unaudited, and these are not final numbers. We're a little bit of ways off from the final numbers. We're still shooting for the end of April for what you would call audited financial statements, and hopefully we're on that. But I'm going to take a look at how we did for the month, for the year with respect to forecasts, and then take a look at the most important numbers, which would be how did we compare to budget. So we'll start with just the month of December, and as you can see, all three funds exhibited positive numbers on the income statement. The forecast had a negative number for the city division because we have a large expense that runs through there. And the forecast variance was favorable for water, unfavorable for wastewater, and favorable for the city by a large amount. In terms of cash flows, again, we were a little bit negative in water, wastewater was positive, city division negative. We forecasted negative in December because you got some big interest payments and principal payments going out the door. So altogether, we finished with a negative forecast variance on water, wastewater, and the city division ended up positive. Again, that's just for the month. How we look year to date. In terms of income statement, all three funds again are on the positive side. Against the forecast that was mostly positive, except in suburban wastewater, we did pretty well. We showed favorable variances across the board, to the tune of almost $10 million in income. Cash flows, positive across all three funds. We had forecast that way. However, when I looked at some of the working capital changes for suburban water and suburban wastewater, we were a little bit unfavorable, meaning essentially that I was probably a little bit aggressive when I was looking at working capital items when we did the month, forecast the month. So. But you'll see that at the end of the day, the good side of all of this is that we are favorable compared to budget. I'll cover that. Debt service coverage ratio, everything is above 1.20. Suburban wastewater is the only one that was down a little bit with respect to forecast and not much. So I can't complain about what I see in debt service coverage ratios. So for the full year, this is when we start to compare everything to budget. Again, on the income statement, you could see we were positive across the board. We budgeted that way across the board. And the only significant variance that we had was the variance that revealed itself to us on the suburban wastewater side with respect to municipal revenues. So that played out as we expected it would. On the cash flow side, positive across all three funds. We predicted that way. We have positive variances against budget on all three funds. So that's good. So debt service coverage ratios, again, better than budget, down a little bit, and that's mostly due to that revenue shortfall in wastewater and city division, favorable as well. So we'll take a look at some of the graphs that we do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the year-to-date comparison to forecast other than just some of the big hitters. You can see, the income year to date for suburban water, big hitters were favorable operating expenses and favorable interest income. As you look at the full year, you can see that operating revenues are up compared to budget now. Operating expenses were down by million plus. We got better interest income, and the only thing that pulled us down just a little bit and not much was interest expense. So he ended up with a pretty healthy variance compared to budget and income. On the cash flow side of suburban water, again, the big item in cash flows for the month compared to forecast was the unfavorable working capital that I talked about. In the full year, you had the unfavorable working capital effect offset by better revenues and lower expenses, obviously. Get some positive news from lower debt service and financing costs. CAPEX was down by $1 million in an additional 300,000 favorable variance on interest income. So we're a total variance of $3.5 million against budgets. Now, keep in mind also one other thing on the suburban water side was we budgeted about $3.9 million worth of money coming from a loan that we took out in 2022, took a little bit more than that to catch up. So we held our own with respect to that because that would have been $3 million additional cash flow. In terms of the internal metrics, covered debt service coverage ratio looked good with respect to, and I'm comparing to the fiscal year budget. The operating ratio was good, better than budget. And cash on hand finished at almost 328 days compared to the 180-day target that we set up. Okay, looking at suburban wastewater on the income side, again, just looking at the big, well, there was two big hitters in terms of forecast variances. We were down municipal revenues by $1 million. However, we got saved by operating expenses and other non-operating interest income. That's for forecast. The good news is, even though we fell behind budget by $1.9 million, a lot of it in the operating revenue side of $3 million, again, with lower municipal and some lower industrial numbers. We made up a lot in operating expenses, up 719,000, made up some in interest income. So far, two funds, interest income was a big positive offsetter for us in a lot of respects. And that was basically due to some of the favorable rates that we were able to invest money at. Looking at the cash flow side of wastewater, again, cash from operations down mostly because of the working capital effect that was unfavorable. When you look at the full year cash flow, we're down almost $3 million, and that's a combination of working capital. That's a combination of that municipal revenue issue that we had. But we made up some of that in terms of lower CAPEX, and certainly made up a big chunk of that with higher interest income. Metrics. Debt service coverage ratio was going to be down. We talked about it going to be down when we had the issue, 9.12 versus 11.69. Operating ratio, a little bit less than 1, would have liked to have been at 1 versus the budget of 1.11, but still good to say that we have more than 180 days cash on hand in the fund as well. City division on the net income side, well, the variance patterns are almost the same in here. We're up in revenue against forecast, and up in operating expenses, up in non-operating revenues, and up in interest, down in interest expense. And you could say it's a repeating factor for comparisons to budget as well. So all good news on that. And interest is a little bit difficult because you get some accretion effects that are very difficult to budget, so. Cash flows. Pretty similar to what we saw in net income. I mean, it's all favorable cash from operations, favorable on debt service and financing. CapEx was $5 million lower as you compare it to budget, and investing income was $4 million better than budget. In terms of the metrics for the city, 2.48 in terms of debt service coverage ratio, obviously beats the budget. 2.05 operating ratio, beats budget as well. And days cash on hand, 240.3 versus 180 target. So you guys like the score sheet here, and actually it's pretty easy to look at the very last column. The city's got 14 out of 14. Suburban wastewater, well, once you factor in that revenue effect, it has a tendency to bring that down from 14 to 8. And the suburban water, well, we only had the cash flow issues and a little bit unfavorable operating revenue, so they hit 12 out of 14. So if I summarize it all, I think if you focus on the budget side and the comparison to budget, the only one that we really had a problem with was suburban wastewater because of the revenue budget issue, and that affected net income and cash flows. I think it's safe to say that all the underlying metrics were pretty good, particularly debt service coverage ratio and days cash on hand, which is our two big items. It was good to look across the board in terms of operating revenues against budget for suburban water and city, and say they were good with respect to budget. Suburban wastewater, well, we've talked about this. It had the budget shortfall. And even across the board in terms of controllable operating expenses, all three funds were better than budget, despite inflationary pressures during the year. So I was pretty happy with that. And well, we got some favorable interest rates, and that certainly helped us compensate for some of the other things that went on in the budget, and particularly cash flow. So. Questions?
Just refresh our memories. What was the suburban budget issue?
Well, what happened was when we do suburban, there's a lot of what you would call, because of the pretreatment plant and the way that the flow of revenues and expenses goes in between funds, we're supposed to eliminate them all. Okay, and we didn't on like almost $3 million of revenue, didn't eliminate it from the budget like we should have. So the actuals come in with these intercompany eliminations, and the budget's sitting there with a $3 million expectation that's never going to happen.
Those are like internal.
It's an inter-fund thing, just within suburban wastewater. But I mean, we discovered it and went, oops. So we made sure that we fixed that when we did the 2024 budget. I won't be able to use that as an excuse any longer. Any other questions?
All right, thanks, Ed. Any questions of the board?
Yeah, I've got one
Ed,
question, Brian, Ed. The last page where it says development activity on the handout lists a variety of things where it says water system construction is occurring and water system plans are being reviewed. All right. Is WT, is that Weisenberg Township? Is that what that is? The abbreviations?
Probably.
No, Washington, that's not Weisenberg.
Grant Street Homes would be Washington.
Washington Township.
Oh, so Grant Street Homes or Washington Township? Because then I when I see Grove Street Sewer Extension, Washington Township is written out. And then I looked at Bandit Truck Stop Sewer Main Connection, and that's got a WT. So I'm getting a little confused between Weisenberg Township and Washington
Yeah,
Township.
we need to clean that up for next time.
We'll spell that.
Yeah, the bandit is in Weisenberg, but the grant is
Correct.
in Washington. Good catch.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions of for Ed? Okay, Ed, thank you very much for your report.
Welcome.
Good year, except for that blip. All right, moving on then to the monthly system operations overview. It's digital board packet pages 32 to 40. The January 2024 report was attached to our documents as another white document.
All right, thank you. In front of you, you do have the January 2024 operations report. The first page, I'm glad to say that we have no recordable safety accidents. So that's always a very good positive thing. However, we did have 2 non-recordable safety incidents, which were both vehicle related. They're further explained down in the sheet. On page 2, for water production, as with any wintertime months, production is a little bit below average. However, once you get down to the wastewater side, you'll notice a very large uptick over what we typically see on an average month. For example, Klein's Island, we discharged 40.77 MGD. Typically, we're in the 32 to 33 million gallon range. So with all the wet weather that we have been seeing, it's definitely having an impact. Same with the pretreatment plant, we were at 5.27 MGD, which is a little bit of an uptick. However, in the 5 small wastewater systems, we average 0.3 MGD. And if you look back at 2022, we averaged 0.19. So once again, a very large increase. And that main contributing factor is going to be your next number, which is the precipitation, which was 6.32 inches in January. And that's coming off of a very large month in December, if you recall as well. That in itself, it gave us a lot of operational issues. For example, we had 9 SSOs and or bypasses, which we'll touch on in a little bit. We also did receive 1 NOV. That NOV was for the Arcadia West wastewater treatment plant. There were several instances where there was fecal violations. There was some phosphorus violations and then also a late permit application. My response letter was attached to the end of this document as well. Another high number, I would say, is main breaks. In Allentown, we had 8. So the field services crew was very busy in January. If you notice in 2022 or 2023, I'm sorry, there was only 8 main breaks. So we had a good portion just in January this year. All right, we'll head on over to the 3rd page and sort of tie it in with the memo. Since there was a large number of bypasses and SSOs, I've tried to summarize a little bit better. As last time in Allentown, we did have 1 bypass, and that was relating to the January 10th storm. You'll notice January 10th is on here a few times. So that storm did have a very large impact. With that storm, we did bypass 1,585,280 gallons. And there was also 2 SSOs that were located during that storm. In Arcadia, the NOV, which I already described, Heidelberg Heights, we did have 2 separate bypasses. The first one started on January 9th and ended on January 16th. That one had a total of 866,000 gallons. The second bypass was initiated January 28th and ended on January 30th. And that totaled 1,770,800 gallons. With that being said, we did have 3 permit exceedances directly relating to the high conditions leaving the plant and the loadings. At Lynn Township, we also had a bypass. That bypass totaled 695,000 gallons. And with that, we also did have 2 permit exceedances. Sand Spring, we had 3 permit exceedances related to ammonia, nitrogen. And Winwood, we had 3 SSOs. Now, 2 of those SSOs were related to the January 10th storm that we had. The third one was due to a mechanical failure on one of the floats. They did not register the height of the water in the wet well, and it ended up overflowing. There was no boil water advisories at any of our systems in January. And that's the summary of non-compliances in January. Open to any questions you have on the.
I have a question, Brian.
Go ahead.
There was a recent article in the Morning Call concerning the redevelopment of the state hospital land into apartments, retail space, etc. How will this affect our wastewater treatment allocation in the future, along with the development, the current development activity that's listed on the back of the financial papers?
So this one is a very large development in the city of Allentown. And I believe they're looking for about 400,000 gallons per day of wastewater treatment allocation. Very large development. I will say that that size of development activity in Allentown is unusual, but it's not so unusual for some of our suburban communities where we're seeing, additional development happening. So from a collective, system perspective, there is capacity in the system on a dry day. However, on a wet day, obviously, we're seeing the result of that in this January report. We do have some issues, and that's the entire focus of the Act 537 plan, is to get those wet weather flows under control so that we don't have an issue with accepting additional development moving forward. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, I'm just concerned about the SSOs, and I don't know if we're going to have fewer rain days with climate change.
Right. But the SSOs aren't happening on dry days.
That's a good thing.
So, getting the wet weather flows under control with projects like the one you authorized for Jason Peters earlier today, those are really important so that we bring those wet weather flows down. Chuck, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the developer will have to go through the DEP planning module process for the additional equivalent dwelling units on top of what the pre-existing allocation was for the hospital. They'll have to go through that process, and that will have to be approved by DEP, the additional flow.
And the city has that amount of allocation within their connection management plan. So there's no reason to think that development wouldn't be approved. It's really more the long-term approach to addressing the wet weather flows. We really need to keep our focus on that.
Thank you.
Just put this for Brian, just the thought about all the money that has been spent on I&I reduction throughout the whole system. Are we seeing an impact on these sewers overflows and the bypasses from all that work we've done? And is there hope for the future to eliminate these through the continuation of Allentown's I&I program?
That's a loaded question, Brian. Yeah, I would say that we are seeing some improvement. It's really difficult, though, if you look at the Heidelberg situation where we've now lined or replaced almost the entire public side of the system, but we're still having wet weather issues like what Andrew just described. So it really causes us to to think about what are we doing about the private side, what are we doing about the laterals, the basement inspections, and all of those things have to be rolled into the municipal source reduction plans at some point. But in Allentown specifically, there's a good feeling that there's some low-hanging fruit with the inspection program on the manholes that we're working on, as well as projects like the one that we just authorized for Jason to manage, that we'll be able to bring I&I down within those the projects that are outlined in the 10-year program. So the modeling that was done by Arcadis in 2021 and 2022 suggests that we should be successful in bringing some of the I&I down. We just need to be keeping our eye on it and also doing regular checks on it to make sure that our projects are actually achieving the intended goals.
Yeah, and just to add to that, just for example, Heidelberg Heights, while these bypass volumes may seem large, if we were to look back at 2 years ago, those numbers would have been even higher. We've definitely seen a volume decrease in the amount leaving Heidelberg Heights. And same thing with Lynn Township. There's been a great improvement up there. We've only had a handful of bypasses in the past year or so. And with some of the work that's been completed up there, Heidelberg and Lynn Township, if there was a bypass, it was typically at both of them at all times. So if you compare those two numbers, you can see an improvement, especially at Lynn.
That's good.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, you probably had a tough month. Mark, you had a
One
question?
question. I know it's not on here. We probably will see it next month, but I understand there was a boil water advisory in North Whitehall Township. Is anybody comment on that?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. We're doing a mainlay project up north, and a contractor hit one of our lines and inadvertently closed a wrong valve, which caused the depressurization to a substantial portion of our customer base up there. And based on the loss of pressure, it was determined that we should issue a boil water out of an abundance of caution.
Okay, what does it last? What, 3 days? Is that how long?
Well, they're always that long, I believe.
As a minimum, I guess they're 3 days, right?
Yeah, so if we get positive results back, it's a 48-hour test from first sample.
How long were we out?
We had a depressurization for about 90 minutes.
Okay.
So there was no actual water loss. There was just loss of pressure throughout the system. We believe we had 2 locations that were at the far end that actually had 0 water coming out of their faucets.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Andrew? All right, now we move on in the agenda to staff comments.
I have nothing additional today.
Solicitor comments,
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
public comments on any items whatsoever.
No comments, thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Board member comments. All right, seeing no executive sessions required this time. Thank you all for being here today, and enjoy your day. We are now adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good day.